And we're live. Hi, everybody. We're going to record a podcast now. Are you ready, Patrick?
Could I be more ready?
I doubt it. Not the way you were born. Are you ready, Eric?
I am.
All right. Let's do it.
It only takes a little to help a lot. To show your support for Daily Tech News Show, go to patreon.com/acedetect and pledge just $1 per month. That's patreon.com/ACEDTECT.
This is the Daily Tech News for Friday, October 9th, 2015. I'm Tom Merritt. Joining me today, Mr. Patrick Beja, usually on Tuesdays, but a special edition here on Friday today. How's it going, Patrick?
It's going well. As I was saying before we started recording, I've been binging on old Friends episodes, so there might be an unusual number of 80s humor attempts in this episode.
Fun game for the folks at home.
In advance.
Yeah, keep track of all the Friends references. Fighting his way through the Friends references and the early morning for him. We're very happy to have Eric Olander, editor-in-chief and co-founder of the China-Africa Project and co-host of the weekly China in Africa podcast, where, among other topics, they closely follow tech in Africa. Thanks for joining us, Eric.
Very good morning, very good afternoon to you guys. And a good evening to you, Patrick.
We span the globe, sir.
Yes,
we do.
We really do. The sun never sets on this particular episode of the Daily Tech News Show. We are going to talk about some of the things, some of the insights that Eric finds in covering Africa regarding technology today, which is why we wanted to shift this to Friday.
Which is right after you say hi to Len.
Yes. Thank you. No, but I wanted to explain that never mind. Let's introduce Len. Hi, Len Peralta, who is here to illustrate the episode today as well.
Yes, thank you so much. I knew you were going to come to me. I just wasn't going to say anything. So, but thank you so much.
And Len's drawings, if anybody doesn't know, show up immediately after the show at lenperaltastore.com. And if you're watching the unofficial video, which we put up on YouTube and archive.org, you can take a look at them there as well. But yeah, so Eric's going to talk about insights on Africa from the technology side of things, which is why Patrick, which is where I was going, which is why Patrick is on the show today, so that we didn't have to make Eric get up ridiculously early before a workday.
Nice.
Let us get into the headlines. As MNMSP posted on our subreddit, LastPass announced that it is being acquired by remote access software maker LogMeIn for $100 million in cash, possibly a little more. LastPass provides password management software for consumers and businesses. LogMeIn acquired business identity management company Meldium last year and intends to integrate its capabilities into LastPass through the two products, and yet the two products will continue to exist independently in the near future. LastPass founder Joe Segrist will lead development of LogMeIn's identity and access management product going forward. This has caused much consternation and concern among fans of LastPass, of which there are many. LastPass is lauded for having very good pricing mechanisms where you can use certain things for free. It's cross-platform on Linux, which is one of the reasons I use it. But Patrick, a lot of people are not very happy that LogMeIn has gotten a reputation for raising prices consistently and seems to be very enterprise focused. People are afraid that maybe LastPass may stop concentrating on its consumers.
That would be very sad indeed. I've been using and recommending LastPass for a couple of years now. I think it's an excellent product. But at the same time, let's wait and see before we freak out. And you know, as with everything, if it turns out that the product loses its soul, I'm sure another one will come and replace it. So I'm not too worried yet.
People are already debating which is the best alternative to jump to. There's a combination of things here, right? There's always consternation when somebody buys your favorite product. People just assume it's going to ruin it. That doesn't always happen. Look at Instagram. Everyone thought Facebook would ruin Instagram, and Instagram has pretty much remained like Instagram was before Facebook bought it. On the other hand, there are plenty of examples along the road of, I don't know, Nokia's handset business, for instance, receiving massive layoffs after Microsoft bought it. So it's hard to say about that. There's also the fact that LogMeIn just has a bad reputation because it used to be a free service that a lot of people liked, and it changed over time, and a lot of people have not gotten over that.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like something like LastPass would. I mean, I've been supporting them. I've been a subscriber for since the beginning, basically. It seems like that kind of company could not keep growing, or it was fine as it was, but it's not that surprising that it's finding someone interested in making it maybe bigger, integrated into their own offering. Again, I don't think they've expressed the fact that they would shut down the service, but so let's wait and see what happens. Twitter announced a new offering for Twitter Amplify that lets advertisers run video pre-roll ads before targeted videos uploaded to Twitter. Publishers upload videos to video.twitter.com and are paid a majority of ad revenue generated. Recode reports Twitter says it will keep 30% of the sale.
I uploaded a video, went to video.twitter.com, worked great.
Did you get 30% of the sales?
There was no pre-roll on the ads.
I think there's some reasons to be skeptical of this. The problem, in my day job outside of China, Africa, I'm in the digital video space here, and clients are looking for scale. And the problem that I think with Twitter is that, Twitter's these micro communities oftentimes, with the exception of some big celebrities. And then the fact that Twitter really isn't a global platform. I mean, Twitter has some, and this has been Twitter's problem, is that it has a lot of dark space around the world in terms of markets. For example, here in Vietnam, Twitter's a non-player, it's non-existent. I mean, at 300 million users, how many of those are active users? Probably, a decent percentage. But I just, compared to what Facebook and even what Dailymotion and also what YouTube are doing in terms of scale, the big brands, it might be a little try that they do, but they're not going to, I don't think, place big advertising bets on Twitter right now.
Apple has removed a few apps, including ad blockers, that do not use the iOS 9 ad blocking framework. These are apps that are removed because they install root certificates and act like VPNs without making it clear to users that they do that, right? So there's plenty of apps that reroute traffic to another server. The Opera mobile browser, for instance, does that. A lot of your VPN services do that, but they're doing it. It's very clear to you that they're doing it. Apple says it's working with the developers to get these apps back into the store, probably just making sure they put in alerts when you install them that say your encrypted traffic will be going through our servers, so you're saying you trust us not to spy on you.
One of the apps that was doing this, that had been making a little bit of noise in the past few days, was Bean Choice, which is basically an ad blocker that goes through a VPN that allows them to block the ads even within the apps and not just on the web. So that app was removed along with the other ones. I'm wondering if it might come back being more explicit.
I think seems what Apple is saying is we don't mind that you do this. You have to tell people up front, and they're probably trying to agree on wording.
Not to launch back into the whole debate about ad blocking, but using VPN to block the ads from within an app seems like even more questionable than on a website, because an app, really, if you go to the app, you want to use it. It's not like a website that you go to automatically or because of a link or something. Blocking the ads within an app seems, I don't know, it makes me...
Here's the scenario. I'm in Feedly. I click on a link. The in-app browser launches, and suddenly none of my ads are blocked. And I used to block the ads, and now I can't read the page because it's covered in advertisements that are malicious and awful.
Well, I think in the case
that's what they're targeting here.
But in an in-app browser, the only browser available in
and the extensions
iOS
apparently don't work when it's calling the in-app browser.
Ah, okay. All right. Fine, Merritt. Well, you know what? While speaking to German newspaper Handelsblatt, Tesla Motors CEO Elon Musk noted Apple has hired people Tesla has fired and said, "We always jokingly call Apple the Tesla graveyard. If you don't make it at Tesla, you go to work at Apple." That's what the quote he gave. He also pointed out building cars is more complicated than building smartphones, while adding, for Apple, the car is the next logical thing to finally offer a significant innovation. So I don't know if he's being complimentary or just factual in the second part of his quote, but I mean, I don't know if Apple can manage to build a car and to make it appealing and to make it technologically worthwhile. It's certainly a huge challenge. But the quote by Elon Musk, first of all, he's getting feisty, which I don't think we're used to for him in that way. And second of all, the quote about, well, you know, it's Apple. They're building smartphones. They can't build cars is strangely reminiscent of the quote from, I think it was BlackBerry's CEO at the time about Apple making a phone when he was saying, they make computers. Phones is a totally different business and industry. So, yeah.
Do either of you really think that Apple or Google are going to actually make a car, or are they going to focus in on the OS for the car? I mean, Google's come out and said they don't want to make cars. They want to build the software that goes into all the cars. And, you know, I'm not sure Apple's going to be qualified to make a car either.
It was the Palm CEO, by the way, Patrick. Quick Google search, by the way, because I didn't remember exactly myself. But yeah, Eric, that's a great question. I am still resistant to the idea that Apple would make a car. Now, they have hired people involved in parts manufacturing and things that are definitely beyond just making an in-dash operating system. But that could still imply that what they want to do is provide a whole car operating system that knows how parts work with each other, and they need those people for that kind of expertise. I just can't imagine Apple creating manufacturing plants and assembly lines for cars. I feel like they just, in the end, will have to partner with some kind of auto manufacturing.
Well, you know, they have the money to do it. They could, basically.
They could.
It seems like they
could buy Tesla, too.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe that's why Elon's all upset, is they haven't.
Possibly.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they could potentially partner with someone in the beginning and then do a car themselves. They could never do a car themselves. You know, the truth is, I think they're still exploring stuff, and even Apple doesn't know what they're going to do.
That's probably the most likely truth out of all of it. Because they do that. They spend a lot of money on research sometimes and then abandon the product line because it just doesn't work out. It's happened before, apparently, although they never admit it. Fried Okra wanted us to mention a Liliputing article about an alternative Android app framework called MicroG GMS Core being developed by a developer called Marvin. The aim is to create a free open source alternative to Google Play services. That would allow your apps like YouTube and Google Maps to run even if you didn't have the official Google version of Android. If you don't mind testing beta frameworks, you can find the latest version at the XDA Developers Forum. If I were Google, I'd be encouraging this. This is going to help your antitrust case, right?
Oh, Tom. I don't think Google is very happy about this. They've spent the last...
I didn't say they were. What I said was if you've got Europe suing you for antitrust because Google Play Services locks down your platform, it would be smart to encourage this and go, look, see, there's competition.
Well, yeah. I guess in a perfect world they would say that's what happens. But they've spent the last 3 years trying to make sure that Google services, Play services, are in place. In fact, to restrict these kinds of operations of getting those apps not available on.
They also open sourced the rest of the operating system. That's something Microsoft never did.
Of course. Of course, I think they did that in the beginning to get market share and then started thinking, oh, wait, maybe we should have a little bit of this pie for us and not for other people. But we'll see. I mean, they have that's the way they're playing the game. They got a lot of market share because of the openness of the system. So now they have to, quick metaphor, Friends reference. Damn it.
They have to jump in the fountain, play with a smelly cat? I don't know.
Basically.
Yeah,
exactly. HouseOfBrick submitted the Washington Post report that U.S. FBI Director James Comey told the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee Thursday that the administration would not seek legislation requiring backdoors in encryption. Hooray, said every geek in the audience. The decision was made at a cabinet meeting on October 1st.
So
I like how they said not seek as opposed to that they can't. I mean, if they could, they would, and they can't, so they won't.
Pretty much, yeah. ISP Review notes that... Huawei and NTT Docomo conducted the world's first large-scale field trial of 5G mobile broadband at an outdoor test site in Chengdu. The test reached a peak speed of 3.6 gigabits per second using the sub-6 gigahertz band. One test involved multi-user MIMO with 24 concurrent device connections in the macro cell environment for an average downlink of 1.34 gigabits per second. Huawei hoped to launch their first 5G pilot networks in 2018 and have complete interoperability by 2019, ahead of the generally accepted commercial launch window for 5G of 2020. These may not be the fastest 5G speeds you've ever heard reported, but these are the first in closer to real-world conditions with multiple devices outside of a laboratory, essentially.
So is the multiple user MIMO a thing that is going to be used? Is it going to be for like to cluster together connections to deliver faster speeds to I don't know, buildings or something like that, or is that going to be the way each device works?
Good question. I'm not sure what multi-user MIMO will be used for. I'm not up on that, but I do know that it means that you had a bunch of different devices hammering a cell tower, which is very similar to what happens in downtowns of cities. So the fact that you can still get a gigabit, 1.1 gigabits wirelessly is pretty exciting to me.
Oh, so that was a test of load. It was multiple.
Well, that's part of it. I mean, basically, this is just another stepping stone along the road to developing 5G speeds. And do you not want gigabit wireless?
Oh no, of course.
I'm
just wondering what they were testing exactly. And 1.34 gigabits. If that is actual real world performance, it's pretty exciting.
This is closer to real world performance. I mean, frankly, for me, anything above 5 megabits per second seems pretty exciting sometimes.
I have a super good connection at home now.
Do you know how you peak out with wireless?
With wireless, I get about, I would say, 60, 70 megabits per second.
Good. Yeah.
Wi-Fi, I need.
Oh, no. I'm talking about on your 4G service.
4G must be 20, 30 megabits.
Yeah,
maybe a little bit.
That sounds about right.
I can do a test now and report in a minute. California's governor signed the Electronic Communications Privacy Act Thursday. It requires a warrant in order for state law enforcement or other agencies to acquire metadata or digital communications from businesses. It also requires a warrant to track or search electronic devices. 5 other states require warrants for content, and 9 require warrants for GPS location tracking.
Now, this only applies to the state of California's agencies, of course, but it is definitely a signpost in the United States as to the kind of laws that can be written by other states. So I would expect to see at least this sort of comprehensive law be considered in other states, whether or not it's passed. And
it's also interesting to note that it's not like no one wants people to use those, to acquire the data. It's just saying you just need a warrant.
Yeah.
Fine. Just, you'll get them. Just get a warrant.
And that is a look at the headlines.
About 15 megs up. Oh, sorry. 15 megs down, 3 megs up. It's not great.
15 megs down is okay. That's probably close to what I get. You could submit your stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. Let us know what kinds of stories you'd like us to cover. We got great suggestions from you guys today, so keep it up. dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. Okay, so Patrick and I, one of the things we had seen was an interesting story by Barrett Nash, co-founder of Rwanda-based Safe Motos. It's more of an opinion piece that he wrote up calling for entrepreneurs to move to Africa. He wrote it up on TechCrunch. He says, look, if you look out the window and you see San Jose, you'll solve problems for the people of San Jose. If you look out the window and see Kigali, you will see problems for the people of Kigali. Really interesting. So many interesting stories. We've talked about the fiber project that Google is doing in Ghana. We've talked about Eutelsat and Facebook partnering up to bring rural internet and satellite internet to Africa. And so Patrick had the excellent idea of bringing Eric Olander on the show, who covers this. Patrick, you have some really good points that you want to cover today.
Yeah, well, so I think that really, we've been dancing around this topic for a while now, for the past 2 or 3 years at least, where we peripherally touch on Africa and the development of it, and we're always saying, leapfrogging allows them to be very efficient in wireless equipment, and they're all using smartphones, but we never really dive into it, and we don't actually know what the situation is. So I guess I have a few questions for you, Eric, and the first one would be, what is the actual state of the tech industry in Africa? More specifically, maybe about the cell equipment. Do they all have? I mean, admittedly, Africa is a very large place, so I'm sure there are differences in different countries. But is everyone equipped now? Is everyone using a cell phone? Are they using only cell phones? Can you paint us a picture in 35 seconds?
So let's just kind of step back and kind of redefine Africa. It's 54 countries spread across, obviously an entire continent of almost 1 billion people, speaking multiple languages, multiple ethnicities. I mean, it's a very complex market. So I think the less we kind of think of Africa as a single kind of space, the better we're off. So there are different pockets of it. You're looking at about 15% overall internet penetration across the continent. It's rising quickly. This is definitely a mobile-first environment, as are most emerging markets and frontier markets like those in South Asia, South America, and obviously in Africa. They're making the switch. They're getting online first with feature phones, which is doing very kind of simple WAP types of messaging and WAP environments. But then now with the Chinese, and this is why the Chinese are so important in Africa, because the Chinese handset makers have kind of figured out a formula to bring a smartphone at about the $50 to $60 price range. And that's proving to be a magic price point for people. And just vast numbers of people are now connecting to the internet for the first time, thanks to the arrival of these Android-powered smartphones.
Now, Google likes to make a big deal out of its Android One program, which just launched in Africa, trying to sell it around that price point you're talking about. But they're behind other handset makers here. It's not just the Chinese ones. Huawei and Xiaomi are in this market. Nokia actually is kind of on the way out, but it's still selling in this market. So do any of these others, Mozilla's, OnePlus, do they have a chance, or have the Chinese handset makers gotten in and gotten entrenched?
Well, it's the Chinese and the Koreans. Samsung is number 1 in Africa, and Huawei is number 2, and Huawei is really gunning for Samsung to be number 1. But at the same time, I mean, really, Nexus One, these are small bit players. At the end of the day, producing a $50 and $40, $50 smartphone is not an easy thing to do. And these are smartphones that have very different product requirements than you have in more advanced economies. So Huawei builds a whole line of smartphones that are dust resistant, that are much more lean on their power consumption, and power consumption is really a critical issue in Africa, in part because of the inconsistency of power. So people need their batteries to last a lot longer. They want to have apps that are much more efficient, and so Huawei's building in solar panels in the back of smartphones, which is fantastic, so you can recharge automatically, dust resistant, water resistant, much more durable. People hold on to smartphones much longer than they would in other markets because of the cost. So there are very specific requirements that companies from developing countries oftentimes have a little bit more sensitivity and sophistication to build for. And that's one of the advantages that Lenovo, ZTE, and Huawei have an understanding for, because they're building for the Chinese, the Indian, the Vietnamese, and these kind of emerging markets, and they have a lot more experience than the Apples and some of the Android phones that are coming out of the US.
Hey, listening to all of those, requirements and technical descriptions, I'm sort of thinking the Googles and the Facebooks of the world seem like they're kind of starting from a place of, where they are with a Western economy and a Western market, and trying to adapt that to Africa and saying, we're going to build cheap Android phones and we're going to do this and that. When, from what you're saying, I'm sort of thinking, isn't that, maybe the people actually on the ground there are looking at this and thinking, this is cute, right? This is not what we need. What we actually need is this, that, and this. Is there any truth in that, or
No,
are they
there's
actually
not.
making
What
it?
people, throughout Africa and just like here in Southeast Asia, people want the same things that everybody else wants, which is connectivity. They want functionality. They want good value. So there's really no different in terms of the eyes of the consumers to what they want. How that's delivered, well, that might vary a little bit because of the specific kind of physical requirements that are kind of unique to emerging markets. But at the end of the day, social networking, mobile banking, kind of communication, transportation, these are the things that people really love about smartphones. So there's really no difference there. The key thing to think about for Google and for Facebook, and it's very important, just this past month, Google was displaced here in Vietnam as the #1 site and the #1 search engine. So it's been displaced by a local player. So more and more, there's competition in emerging markets. And that's why Facebook is doing this. I mean, we look at the headlines for Facebook and Google. Why are they rolling out connectivity? Because they need this next billion consumers in order for their businesses to grow. Everybody who wants a Facebook account in France or the United States or Japan has one. There is no more growth in the advanced markets. The growth is going to be in these frontier markets. And that's very, very complicated because you got to get these people online. And that's the first step, which explains why Facebook and Google are doing these infrastructure deals.
I thought it was interesting you pointed out a story that in South Africa, just in this past month, there's been a mini explosion of video on demand services, which is something I don't think people associate with a developing market when you're talking about something like that. But I think that shows that there are different markets within Africa, obviously, but it also shows that you're really getting some advanced connectivity there.
Well, you are, and so this is really key because in the next year, three major backbone trunks are going to be connected to the continent, and they're starting to light up. And so what we're starting to see, there's these great maps of Africa which show the connectivity. As these trunk lines come in, you're going to start seeing just the lighting up of video and multimedia, because right now the biggest problem that most African mobile internet users have is connectivity. So that's one of the things I see from my podcast traffic. Very, very little traffic coming out of Africa just because the download kind of requirements of a 35, 40 megabyte podcast is still too much because they're paying for bandwidth on their mobile cards. So, but now that these trunk lines are coming into South Africa, into Rwanda and East Africa, and now we're seeing one into West Africa as well, a lot of that traffic doesn't have to be routed by satellite or via Europe, which is what it used to have to do. So video is just exploding, and that's really very exciting. So YouTube is going to be a big player. This is where Twitter has to grow its audience in markets like this. It's done a terrible job of doing it, but the opportunity for video and monetizing video is going to be very big in Africa.
Let me ask you about China. I guess we heard in the past few years on a regular basis the fact that China was very much involved in Africa, and you've mentioned it here as well. I'm curious about the nature of their involvement. Basically, are they just there to sell phones, or are they also building plants to get the manufacturing going in Africa as well, maybe giving a boost to the economy there as the middle class in their own country in China is starting to be so widespread that maybe they realize manufacturing is not going to be there forever.
Yeah, so that's a complicated question. So on one hand, in the tech space, China, as I said at the top of the show, is playing an incredibly important role. Huawei in particular and ZTE, the two biggest players, Lenovo as well, but on the infrastructure side, they're wiring up the continent, much more so than any other foreign player. They're building cellular data networks, they're putting in the networking gear, they're actually selling the devices. They're both on the B2B and the B2C side. And so those companies are making a huge contribution to connectivity. And they're doing it for private sector reasons. There is no political agenda here. There's no governmental agenda. They're seeing Africa as an emerging market. They don't look at Africa in the same way that many do in Europe and the US, which is some kind of charity case. I mean, even the Facebook story was all routed through internet.org as some kind of nonprofit thing. That's not what the Chinese do. They are looking at this as an opportunity to grow a market. Now, in terms of the manufacturing that you talked about, that's happening, but it's happening in the low-tech space. So, for example, Huajin, the third largest shoemaker in the world, has new factories in Ethiopia. Hisense, which is a white goods maker, they're now in South Africa. Cars are being assembled in South Africa. But for the most part, these are low-tech items. The high-tech still isn't going to come to Africa for quite some time, in part because the supply chains just aren't there. And really, when you look at what it takes to put a phone together, it's an incredibly complicated supply chain. And you need infrastructure, and you need suppliers, and you need sourcing, and you need reliable ports, reliable electricity, reliable roads. None of that is really in place yet for tech manufacturing.
I think it's really interesting what you pointed out with that Facebook satellite story, because if you read the press release and if you read some of the European and Middle Eastern coverage, the story is Eutelsat is going to provide satellite internet to Africa, and Facebook's going to provide is going to hop along with them and provide their internet.org service through that as well. Every American tech blog was Facebook provides free internet via satellite to Africa, and I think that's a really important point. Is yes, Facebook is doing that. They should do it. That helps people, especially in rural areas that maybe can't afford data plans to kind of get on the internet and maybe build up a business where they can. But that's not the entire story of Africa. There are incredibly viable startup communities in Nigeria, in Kenya, in Rwanda, all over the continent, as you point out, which is a vast continent.
Yeah, and there's a very exciting startup community, obviously in Accra, in Johannesburg. Nairobi is really a great hub. Kigali in Rwanda, a lot of tech going on there, in part because of the bandwidth. So if you want to see where the startup hubs are, follow where the connectivity is. And once you see the connectivity, you'll start to see communities, and then they're going to build products which are, again, unique to the local market. The best case, and this is the showcase that everybody talks about, is M-Pesa out of Nairobi, which is the money transfer. But at the same time, localized search is coming up, localized transportation apps are coming up, and it's a very exciting space. Again, my only kind of final point, we should do what the Chinese do. The Chinese don't look at Africa as a basket case or a charity case. And we have to look at Africa as really an amazing, dynamic place where there's a lot of interesting things going on and where there's money to be made and businesses to be opened.
Hey, I have one last question. How much iPhones is Apple selling in Africa? Is that a thing
Virtually
at all?
none. No, this is one of those dark spaces for Apple, because the price point is simply too high, and it's just for the vast majority of consumers. The elites, sure, there's a small number of elites that travel, and then there's probably a gray market like there is here in Vietnam. But for the most part, this is an Android and still a kind of a feature phone market.
I know when I look over the list of where they're going on sale, and by the way, iPhone's going on sale internationally in 40 different markets today. Cairo, Johannesburg, that's usually what you see as far as Africa goes. Yeah,
that's right. And so, but that may spread a little bit. But at about $1,000 a phone, $800 a phone, that's a pretty big chunk of money. And so it'll be some time before we see a mass kind of play for Apple in Africa.
It's an interesting question, Patrick, because it is sort of an index of where a market is, right? China now is a big market for the iPhone. It didn't used to be. India is starting to be, although it's not a huge market yet, and that's sort of following that trajectory. The iPhone kind of goes when things start to get economically wealthy. I don't know what the right word is, but when they...
But keep your eye on these Chinese manufacturers, because I've noticed just here in Vietnam, Vietnam is a very similar market to Africa in terms of per capita income. The Chinese handset makers, Oppo, Xiaomi, are coming in a very big way at the top end of the market, and they're really eating into Apple's market share here in these emerging markets. So Apple's got a fight on its hands for these new markets. And the App Store also creates secondary problems. A lot of the Android apps are cheaper and free, whereas the Apple apps have to pay for more. And so people kind of take that into concern as well.
I wonder if at some point, once those markets start to open up, we're not going to see the App Store change a little bit and more variable pricing, or well, maybe not.
Let me just kind of be upfront here, is that everybody in my office, when I showed them my iPhone, they're like, and I said, well, how do you, there's no Vietnamese App Store here. And they said, you don't pay for apps, do you? And I said, well, yeah, what do you do? And they're like, they laughed at me that I pay for my apps. So they're hacking, all of the apps here on the Apple platform are all free. So it's
interesting.
That's a
Eric,
big part of the reality here.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. This is not a topic we're done with by any means. Jenny and I were talking yesterday. We have plans to maybe do a special report on it or bring other guests on, bring Eric back for sure. So I really appreciate you talking with us, man.
Hey, it's my pleasure. Always fun.
All right, a couple things before we get out of here. Pick of the day comes from Clint, who suggests How the Internet Really Works is a great series of blog posts by Russ White that explains how the technology of the Internet works, including DNS, routing, peering, standards bodies, how it's all connected together, how every company involved makes money, while most packet pushers' content is deep into technology that only network operators would care about. This series is accessible for anyone wanting to understand more about how the Internet really works. So if you've been curious about interconnects and DNS and peering and all of that stuff, check out ntwrk.guru. We'll have a direct link to the blog post in our show notes, and then it takes you over to the Packet Pushers blog posts. He's got them all collected nicely on that one page. Just a nice little collection there. Thank you, Clint, for sending that along. Send your picks to us, folks. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. You can find my picks at dailytechnewsshow.com/picks. Now, Patrick, when you heard about Facebook testing emojis in alternative to their like button, what emoji would you have picked to represent your feelings?
Angry.
Wow,
I
really?
just wanted to say angry.
Okay.
It felt like if I had said like, it would have been underwhelming, so I went with angry.
Well, Rich in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, has an alternative suggestion. He says, I'm listening to the discussion about what should we add to Facebook, and what's staring me back in the face is feels. Facebook should just make a feels button. Aw, man, my car broke down. Feels. Hey, a new baby picture. Feels. My grandma's cat died. Feels. My kid graduated from pre-K. Feels. What do you guys think?
I think, it could work. It could work. It's also a little bit more Facebook's own thing. I really think that's a very good idea.
Yeah.
It works.
Something generic that means more than just like. It's almost it's neutral. Because feels can be angry feels sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. Feels is completely adaptable. It's just it provokes feelings in me. It's emotion, some kind of emotion. It's pretty good.
We'll see what the Irish and the Spanish turn out in their test, because they're the only countries getting it so far. Finally, with regard to yesterday's discussion of the Indonesian app Clue, I had several people here in the U.S. say, hey, my city does this too. Alan says we have something quite similar in Los Angeles called MyLA311. Alice and I were talking about we need this in LA. Well, guess what? We already had it. We just didn't know it. One can upload a geotagged photo with a choice of service requests, including pothole, streetlight repair, illegal dumping, and so forth. I've used this app perhaps a half dozen times and found the city's response to be fairly prompt. I recommend it highly. Tom Schmidt on Twitter said, look up C-Click-Fix. It's available for multiple cities. He lives in Minneapolis and says that it is paid attention to in that city. And then James from pleasantly cool and apparently tech-forward Milwaukee pointed out that the city of Milwaukee has their own app. He said they have an app to report potholes, other service issues. I'm happy to say Milwaukee is on top of this already, and I have used it with positive results.
How often do you hear stories about government working?
Right?
I mean, listen to that.
I've seen a couple of apps that work in France as well, and they're actually private companies being then licensed. Well, they're licensing the product to government, mayoral offices and things like that. So I think many of them might not be, or some of them might not be actually initiated by the government. So
well, yeah, it sounds like C-Click-Fix isn't, but that the city pays attention to it. And the Milwaukee and the LA ones are actually official apps that the city government are supporting. So that's really interesting.
There you go.
Anyone else outside the U.S. or inside the U.S. Who has examples of these? I thought it was interesting that Indonesia was doing this, and apparently it's a worldwide trend. So we'd love to hear from you. That is it for the show. We are going to look at LensArt in just a moment. But before we go, Patrick Beja, where can folks find more of you besides next Tuesday when you'll be back on the normal Tuesdays?
Well, they can find more of me on Twitter at Not Patrick, that's it, no.com. That's my Twitter handle. It's also on Facebook, my Twitter handle, and you can find the show Pixels on FrenchSpin.com, where actually Mr. Tom Merritt was officiating for the latest episode. We discussed video gaming news with Tom and Tim Stevens, and it was pretty international as well. It was fun.
Yeah, Tim was over in Japan, so that helped spread it out a little bit as well. Eric Olander, thank you so much again. Tell folks a little more about the China-Africa project, where they can find it and what they'll find.
Sure. We've got a Facebook community of almost 250,000 people at facebook.com/China-Africa Project. Great place to kind of talk about tech and politics and diplomacy and kind of get past the stereotypes and caricatures of both China and Africa. Also, we do a weekly podcast. Just look over on iTunes for China and Africa, and we'll come right on up. And so we do that every week, and then you can follow me on Twitter at Olander, EOLANDER, with the top China-Africa stories almost every day.
Len Peralta has been busy at work creating some art. What do you got for us, Len?
Well, just speaking of feels, right? I wanted to do something that, since you're talking about broadband in Africa and in China and things like that. In Africa, I thought the people who are going to benefit the most are going to be the children. And I kind of had this little idea of these kids who are going to be using this incredible technology within the next probably 2 or 3 years. So you have a young man wearing the Oculus Rift, and a young woman holding on to an iPad, which is, of course, she's a big fan of DTNS. Huh. And if you look over in the corner, it says, "Hello, Mr. Tom. Hello, Mr. Eric. Hello, Mr. Beja. We heart DTNS. Can we be bosses too?"
Yes, of course. Absolutely.
And
so, yeah.
Actually,
what do you think, Eric?
I like it.
I was looking at the picture, and I thought I read, hello, Mr. Tom, hello, Mr. Eric, hello, Mrs. Beja.
No.
That was the first draft. Yeah,
I love that they're that you've got like the IRC chat kind of effect going on with the Oculus Rift on. It's really good, man.
I wanted to do something a little bit different here. Speaking of bosses, I wanted to mention, well, you can get this print if you go to my online store at lenperaltastore.com. But I also want to let you know this week I started at my Patreon, which is patreon.com/Len. If you want to get a DTNS boss avatar, that's one where it's customized by me, drawing you for as an avatar. If you back at the $2.50 level, you can get one of those. You can get one of those. So go to patreon.com/Len, find out how to do that.
Excellent. And of course, lenperaltastore.com to take a look at the drawing and even buy a print of it if you like it, which I like it. So I think you might like it too. Thank you to all our bosses. Folks, we couldn't do it without you. Everybody who supports the show, whether it's on PayPal or in the store, just buying stuff, or on Patreon, patreon.com/AceDetect. You guys are the reason we're able to continue to do the show. So thank you very much. If you support us or don't, or if you're like, I can't really support right now, leave us a review on whatever app you use, whether it's iTunes or Overcast or Pocket Cast, Downcast, whatever. Let people know. You can just do the 5-star rating. You don't have to write anything in there. You can write a review if we have concerns in the text. Nobody reads that stuff anyway. But do review the show because it does help other people to discover the show. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. You can give us a call, 512-59-DAILY. That's 512-593-2459. Listen to the show live Monday through Friday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern at alphageekradio.com and visit our website, dailytechnewsshow.com. Speaking of Tim Stevens, we'll be back on Monday with him and Veronica Belmont. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
That was a great show, you guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure. Anytime.
Absolutely. Likewise, Eric. And I super appreciate you being willing to get up so early and do this.
Hey, listen, Tom, I think I'm going to be coming through L.A. in January, and it'd be fun to just come grab a cup of coffee and finally meet in person.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, if you do, let me know for sure. I'd love that.
That'd be great. So I'll let you know what my travel plans are.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, I'm real close to LAX, too. So
nice. So I don't have to go very far.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, guys, I'll talk to you later. Back to bed.
All right, take care.
Nice meeting you. Take care.
Bye, Eric.
I feel like we'd have that guy on the show all the time if he wasn't at 2:30 in the morning. He's
right?
so great.
I know. And
so
Patrick,
great.
thank you for being willing to shift the
Yeah.
day around to make it easier for
Sure.
Eric. It was totally worth it. I think that was great.
No problem. Yeah, I really like Eric. I think he's great, and I'm always happy to have him on the show.
Well, yeah,
so.
thank you for introducing me to him in the first place. It was, I think, a Phileas Club connection that you had, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he was. I first met him when he was working in Paris at France 24.
That's right.
Yeah, and he contacted me and got him into the show, and yeah, so.
Yeah, when we
Those
first,
stands.
because you recommended him, we had him on Tech News Today, and he was still working in Paris, I think, at the time.
Yeah, yeah.
So title-wise, what should we pick?
Well, there's
Don't
Last
everyone talk
Me-
at once.
Last Me In is currently leading the pack.
Is that
Who
like
Block-
Let Me In?
Yeah, but
Like
with
the
last.
horror movie?
Yeah.
Let the Right One In is the official name of the original.
The Last Passing of Last Pass, which
Oh
is
my
a bit
gosh.
dramatic.
that one's got some poetry to it.
Yeah.
So.
The Tesla fires what Apple hires. Who, of course, your old faithful who blocks
Also
the ad
poetic.
blockers. Yeah. Bless the tech down in Africa.
That's pretty good. That made Len laugh. I bless the tech down.
We have
there.
Last Pout.
Definitely some
Lug
last
Me
pouting.
Out. I like Lug Me Out.
That's
Yeah,
pretty
okay.
elegant, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you feels it?
Can you feel it? Last me in.
Yeah,
Do
I
we
think
go
those
with
are-
the Africa headline or the Log Me Out? I'm kind of between those two for me.
Log Me Out is my vote.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, Lug Me Out is pretty. Although it's so negative.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, we're not sure.
it
I am
represents.
going to vote for the Bless the Tech in Africa, even though it only has 4 votes. That made me laugh.
Bless the tech down in Africa.
Yeah, because that's what the show is about, man.
Gonna take some time to
Well, there
build
was also some
market
healthy
share for
discussion about
small
Log Me In
firms.
versus Last Pass. So vote it out. people.
Bum,
Vote it out.
bum, 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 bum.
We lost Len. We lost Len. Music.
It's a Toto loss.
Oh, hey, there's your headline. There it is. Oh, how about a Friends-related thing? Having no friends is nothing, man.
Well, I thought we would have enough Friends references to call this one the one where they talk about Africa, but then I did do
that's
a new
what-
Friends
I guess we didn't deliver on that. But did you talk?
Oh.
You talked about the Friends reference thing in the show, though, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did.
So there you
in
go.
the beginning,
Kinda
but
like
then we
that.
didn't have it. The one where they talk about Africa is really
I mean,
good, but
I
it's
vote
not-
for that just on pure 90s nostalgia.
Absolutely, I'm
Even
with
though
that.
you made me so much older, Patrick, by calling it an
I
80s
know.
show.
I do. I know.
I
was
said 90s. I said 90s.
All
Well,
right.
at the top of the
I'm-
show, you said 80s, and I was like,
I'm going with the one where they talk about
yeah.
Africa.
That's good.
Oh yes, I'm so happy.
Which
Sorry,
but
Showbot.
all, and also like just so Jeff Bacalar knows, it's on the record that we're doing it because of Friends. We're not trying to rip off the 404, which also does this, has always done this for
right.
their headlines.
Bum, 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 bum. Hey, has
I
anybody
haven't.
played the Battlefront beta yet?
Yes.
It took me 24 hours to download it, so I only got to play it for a minute, literally 1 minute. So I'm going to do that tonight.
Yeah, there are only 2 maps. It's kind of fun. When I first launched it for the first 10 minutes, I thought it was incredibly fun, and then after 20 minutes, I was like, yeah, it's fun. So I'm sort of worried that after half an hour, it would be like,
Well, it's the
of okay.
Tatooine map, and is there multiplayer? Can you do multiplayer?
oh yeah. It's basically all multiplayer.
There's just
and
a
Hoth.
Tatooine and a Jakku map. They're both just like generic desert scenes.
No, it's Kashyyyk. It's no one wants to go to Kashyyyk.
No, there's Tatooine, which is a small, like one objective based map that moves
I
around.
played a little bit of that, right?
So the other one is the what's the snow planet?
Hoth.
Hoth, yes, thank you. So the Hoth AT-AT attack with like it's the crazy battlefield type
Classic.
thing with tons of stuff happening all around, and you have these crazy, the A-wings and the X-wings flying around, and the AT-ATs in the background, and you're gonna see Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker show up from time to time. It's kind of nuts.
And that's in multiplayer.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I will check.
I think
that
you
out.
can do both, but yeah.
Oh, nice. I will do that. Yeah, I get a text from my son at midnight or 12:30. Dad, you gotta download the beta. You gotta download. I go. I have been all day. I haven't had a chance to play it. It's so cool. It's so cool.
Their servers just getting hammered. Is that why it took so long?
I don't know. It might have been my connection or something because people were getting it quicker. But it's 8 gigs. I mean, that's a lot to download.
Yeah.
PSN is notorious for being slow. Sometimes, quick tip, it helps a lot if you pause it and restart it.
Okay. Yeah. That's
probably sends you to another different batch of servers, maybe.
Yeah.
Exactly,
Overnight, I was worried because when I went to bed last night, it was only 36%. I'm thinking, I'm going to wake up, it's going to be like 46, but it was close to 70 or 80, so I didn't have to wait too long this morning. But looking forward to playing it. It's going to be cool.
I'm looking forward to Clone Wars after the trailer that came out this week.
Oh yeah,
ton more of Ahsoka Tano and Darth Vader. So a little bit of the old, a little bit of the new.
I've not seen that show.
It's
think
good.
About this. We're only what's today? The 9th. We're a little over 2 months from new Star Wars, man.
I know.
Oh my God,
it's crazy.
and do you remember we get it like 3 days in advance? I don't know if you remember that.
I really hadn't remembered that until you rubbed it in my face.
You guys get it on the 15th?
I can't remember. It's like 3 days, two or 3 days before.
Well, you can give us a review and you can say, is it worth it?
Patrick's just going to come on the show and tell us like all of the secrets.
I'm going to... No, I wouldn't.
Oh, you're just going to... No, you should just come on and go, it was okay.
I know one of the secrets. I actually... This is cool. I can't say much more than this, but...
No, don't say any more than that.
No spoilers on the movie, but...
Oh, by the way...
yes, go ahead.
So, no, I just want to correct myself. I said Clone Wars earlier. I meant the trailer for Rebels. Thank you, Robin, for the correction. Go ahead, Len.
Oh, I actually know someone who worked on Star Wars. So it was, and I know a little bit about what they did.
On The Force Awakens particularly, I expect.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know what? I know someone that knows someone who worked on The Force Awakens.
I do too. I know Brian Brushwood who knows Greg Grunberg. I bet Jenny Josephson knows tons of people who know people.
Funny Grunny worked on Star Wars?
He works on every J.J. Abrams movie in some capacity.
Yeah.
Really? Funny Grunny, huh? Is he in the new Heroes?
Yeah.
I haven't been watching it, but I saw him in the trailer. Have you watched it, Jenny?
Nope. I recorded it. I was set to watch it. I even started it. I was like, I do not need this again.
Every time I go to watch it, Eileen is around, and Eileen is like, nope.
Yeah. Does that one guy talk too much? The Indian doctor? He talks too much.
I mean, I just was like, you know what? I went through this experiment in the O's, and I don't need to go through it again. It was a moment of perfect clarity for me.
It had so much. That's the thing. Everybody I've talked to about it was like, it had so much potential.
Yep.
They squandered it.
Some shows should not come back.
They squanched it.
Now, if they wanted to bring back Friends, I'd be okay with that.
Well, the second half of Friends was really not great.
That's sort of like the second half of X-Files.
I guess.
I think they should have a Friends reunion called Enemies, and it's about how they all grew old and bitter and hate each other.
And old and bitter, they just all are like
No, it's the alternate timeline. That's the alternate timeline, just like I did on a Community.
Actually, it would be time for a Friends reunion.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, the
awesome.
fact that it came back on streaming and everybody's talking, like you, for instance, are rewatching it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I expect that groundwork is being laid in some conference room somewhere.
That would be awesome.
They're going to get $35 billion per episode, each one of them.
Yep.
Well, I mean, a reunion.
The question is, which one of them is going to hold out and say, I don't want to do it? There's always one.
Well, if that happens, we can.
My guess is
well,
Phoebe.
actually, none of them has done anything for a while.
They'll
take the money.
It'll be the naked guy.
You're completely wrong. I'm sorry. They've all done tons of stuff since then.
Yes, but in the past 5 years,
Joey had an Emmy-nominated show.
Yeah, it's called
For
Episodes.
Joey?
Fantastic.
Oh, for episodes, right.
And then what's her name with the dark hair?
Phoebe had
web therapy, and also the comeback came back, and also the comeback post Friends helped like totally define mocking sitcom mockumentaries. And then Chandler, while not having a show that totally took off, has been making major network bank, doing all of, like The Odd Couple, doing the one before that was the one where he was like in widower therapy, and
Jennifer Aniston has a lovely career in advertising.
Yeah. But also, like, I mean, hey, like, let's credit where credit is due.
What was the Cougars?
Schwimmer just had something too. Cougar Town. Courtney
thank
Cox
you.
Arquette is probably doing the best of anyone
right.
with Cougar Town. So let's all get our facts in a row. If you're going to be on Current Geek, you better be up on the geeky current. Okay?
Listen, I don't call all they've been doing. I mean, it's okay. They've been doing okay, but I don't think they would turn down a reunion.
All right, I'm going to stop talking because otherwise I'll just keep talking and it's going to get
ugly. I
ugly.
think he's asking a fair question, Jenny. Is what they're doing successful enough for them to turn down a reunion? To be like, you know what? I don't need that.
I think they would do it to all get back together and hang out.
But there's always go back to my question. There's always the one who's like, I just don't want to go back to that. There's always one in every one of those reunions who's like, no.
Listen, Tom, it's just for one episode. Like it's a Christmas special. We're not asking you to commit
special.
to well, yeah, there you go. 2016.
I think they would only want, I'll tell you how I think they would do it. They would only do it if word never leaked out that they were doing it. And then they just dropped it on Thanksgiving. That would be awesome.
I ate dinner below one of the apartments from Friends when I was out in New York at this time last year. They'd used the building as the exterior.
Then you danced in the fountain?
That's good. Did you get an autograph from the building?
And then I went to Central Park. No, I just kept trying to look up and go, well, you can't really get the angle they did from down here.
You can't really see the ugly naked guy, although he passed in season 5.
Oh,
spoiler. Somebody found him. That was the whole. They had to move him down the stairs. Wasn't that? Remember that episode where the ugly naked guy died? They had to move him down the stairs, and it was like an hour-long episode.
Wow. What? Maybe that should be the reunion.
No, it was.
He's not dead.
They gotta move him down.
No, there was an episode in which Ross tried to move a couch up his stairwell, though. In Ugly Naked.
When are we gonna get a 10-speed of Brown Shoe reunion?
Ooh, that'd be. Who was? It was that's Jeff Goldblum and that other guy. No, I'd love to see them reboot Kolchak, the Night Star.
I wanted to say Ben Vereen, and then I had the panic moment where I'm like, I'm gonna be wrong, and it's gonna be insulting, but it's Ben Vereen. It was Ben Vereen. Yeah.
Really?
All right, Tom. In an hour and a half, right?
Yes. I'm just finishing up the post right now, and then yes, in a mere 90 minutes, Patrick and I will rejoin each other for Current Geek with Scott Johnson and Garrett Weinzierl. So join us again on most of these Frog Pants networks.
And I've got to figure out what I'm doing for dinner. Who knows?
Eating could be a good idea.
Eating would be good. Yeah.
All right.
French in
Bye,
their
Jenny,
cuisine.
bye,
He's never wrong.
Bye, chat
Bye,
room,
Patrick.
and talk to you in 90 minutes.
See ya.
All right, I'm gonna take off too.
All right. Have a good dinner, whatever you decide on.
Yeah, I think it'll be food, whatever it will be. So.
Good. It's a good choice.
Yeah.
I like it.
My son, my 3-year-old son, likes to eat socks, so maybe I'll buy him some socks.
There you go.
Gummy socks.
What's wrong with that kid? Anyway. All right.
All right.
We'll see you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.